Hello and welcome. For this video today we are dealing with organic compounds. The chapter that you might have seen in your textbook is organic chemistry, or your teacher might have referred to it as organic chemistry, but organic chemistry is all about dealing with organic compounds, and the key thing about organic compounds is that they are the basis of all living things. So all living things contain organic compounds, and all organic compounds contain carbon, and when we do experiments on Mars and stuff like that, we are always looking for carbon or carbon based compounds or organic compounds, because this is a good indicator that there might be living things present. The key organic compounds, however, that we're looking at for the next few videos is going to be the alcohols, the carboxylic acids and esters, and this video is dealing primarily with the alcohols. So the first thing I want to do is just give ourselves an overview and a reminder of what alcohols are all about. Usually when we talk about alcohols, we are usually thinking about alcoholic drinks, for example beer, wine, spirits, all that kind of stuff, and that's not much further than we don't think much further than alcoholic drinks. But if you do look a bit further, alcohols have other uses as well. For example, they are used as solvents, and solvents are substances that can dissolve chemicals. For example, if you've got a permanent ink marker, sometimes you may have made a mistake and written on a whiteboard with a permanent ink marker, and then you may have to run down to the science department to get a chemical to wash it off, and it's usually something that contains alcohol, because alcohol is a good solvent and it will dissolve that ink and remove it from the board. Other uses for alcohol as a solvent is in aftershave and in perfume, and in fact alcohols do have one or two other uses as well, but there's just a couple of examples. The next thing is that you may remember that alcohols are used in fuels. The key one here is ethanol, and when we talk about biofuels, we are often referring to ethanol that is made either from the fermentation of crop plants or sometimes from the reaction of ethene and steam. So another important use is with fuels, and when we burn alcohols as a fuel we get CO2 and water. That's a result of the combustion of an alcohol based fuel. The last thing is that we need to know a couple of examples of this family of chemicals called the alcohols, and those three are methanol, ethanol and propanol, and we're going to have a look at those in a little bit more detail right now. So the alcohols are a group or family of organic chemicals, and by a group or family we mean that they have similar reactions with the different members of that family or that group of chemicals. They all contain the functional group OH here, and we call that a hydroxyl group, and because of this hydroxyl group and because they are all contain that functional group, we call this group of organic compounds a homologous series. So it's members of the same group of organic compounds that contain the functional group OH, and we refer to that as a homologous series. Now the three that we talked about that we need to know about are here: methanol, ethanol and propanol, and you need to be able to recognize the structural formula and the actual formula written in this form down here. So for methanol, the formula is CH3OH, and if we were to look at the structural formula you'd see that it looks a little bit like this. Now just as a little way to possibly help you remember, if you look at this name here, methanol, it reminds you a bit of methane, and methane is a slightly easier one to remember. This is not an alcohol, but remember methane is CH4. This is more of a commonly known formula, and if you look at methanol, it's got almost like CH4, but it's got the H removed from over here, and we've replaced it with our functional group, which is OH. So all we've got is the removal of our H and replacement with our functional group, which identifies it as an alcohol. The next chemical along then is our ethanol, and if you look at ethanol, it's, again, you remember back when we did ethane, which was a hydrocarbon we studied, and that was C2H6, but all we've done here is remove the end H and replaced it again with our functional group, our OH or hydroxyl group on the end there. So this is ethanol. Now the way we can write out ethanol is like this. We write CH3 CH2OH, and that's the way the spec has asked you to remember it. And if you look, we've got our CH3 on the end there, we've got our CH2 in the middle there, and we've got our OH on the end there. Now technically this is not the only way to write it. You could actually write it as C2H5OH. This is also correct, but this tells us a little bit more information about the structure of the molecule. And for our last one, our propanol, we have a structure that is like this. And really, if you look, you can see there's a bit of a pattern here. We've got our CH3 group on the end, we've got a CH2 here, another CH2 because we're going up the series, and here's our functional group on the end. So if you were to write that out, can you have a guess and see what it might be? It's CH3 CH2 CH2OH, and again, technically speaking, you could write that out as CH3H7OH, and that does give you information about the molecule there, and it does have a functional group there. But this is the way the spec has asked you, but again, or should I say that how you should recognize it based on the spec, but this is also correct underneath here. So if we just tidy up this page a little bit, there you have the names, the formulae, and the structural formulae as well. And so the next and final slide is a summary of a couple of the key points that you need to know about the alcohols. The first one is that they dissolve in water to form a neutral solution. So I guess if you put some alcohol in water, put some indicator in there, you'd get a nice green color to show that it was neutral. They react with sodium to produce hydrogen. They burn in air, and this is fairly obvious if we use them as fuel, but when we burn them in there, we actually release carbon dioxide and water. And the last point here we've actually talked about in a little bit of detail already. They can be used as fuels, solvents, and they are found in alcoholic drinks. Okay, so an overview of the alcohols. Next we're going to look at carboxylic acids, and then we also have esters to do as well. So that's me done for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.